Okay.
Yeah, in the event when you hit one, put that one there and order another one. So you
I think
always
that,
have.
yeah, I think that was just maintenance to me, is
Yeah.
always having back.
So I was just thinking, what Chris, where we gonna put it, what we thinking of, you know what?
Mark, we're gonna start with your live website and then switch to slides.
Go to any two, yep.
It changed a little bit from earlier.
Which way?
Hey, Chris, can't Mark just play it off his?
He's got to keep this muted.
Okay, then just take a laptop.
Yeah.
Hey, Mayor, wait for just a second.
Yeah. We gotta see both of them.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me.
So it looks like it changed in the last,
Right.
like, hour, but we're still right at the peak there, so.
Who's saying that sound?
Yeah, like literally within the last,
Will it let you see that?
Is it T-Pain?
that's death, but that's the only thing
Well,
they
that's
show.
what it's been based on.
That's what it's been,
It's always been based on peak
yeah,
stats.
'cause that's just beds and all that.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
the one we did. It did change.
I did mark it. Not safe.
That's all.
Which one is into my personal?
Do you wanna use that one?
So you wanna show this? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one that we
Yeah.
gave again.
Yes,
That's okay. It's interesting.
but the one we gave them was blue, that's good.
That's okay. It changes.
Yeah,
But what's interesting is it went
It
down.
still
but
flattens out
They're
by the
keeping
first
the
two.
model
Right.
up, so,
Yeah.
if you run the average through,
Right.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Still before
Yeah,
June.
they're probably,
Actually, wouldn't be surprised if it looks.
Yeah.
they shoot B-roll. They shoot quick stuff and then they come in. And then so they can get the tape.
Yeah, video.
No? Oh, actually, Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx, thank you. Should've known that.
I didn't know either, so I had to look it on. Of course, I love the second one that shows us.
Living in the Rain. Milli Vanilli was great, until I realized they weren't singing.
Minor technicality.
What
does that matter?
Those poor guys, can you imagine them with that secret all those years?
Oh God, yes.
Like getting a Grammy and they're like, please stop, leave us alone. No, you're awesome.
Remember, even like, before anyone knew, it was like, they don't speak very good English.
A lot of them do that. But their problem was that others would record it and then lip sync.
Right.
Theirs was, they literally didn't even record it. They had a backup group that recorded it and sang it. They weren't even there.
Oh.
And then they sang it. That's
They weren't even in the studio.
a marketing genius said, the band that's singing this is a bunch of, musicians. These two are superstars. So let's connect the superstar look with a great tune. And that was the problem.
Yeah.
And that one guy actually ended up dying. He actually killed himself. Yeah, it's a very sad story. Because they kept getting more and more fame and they're like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Like, yeah.
2 big songs and they didn't sing either one of them. And they had a CD skip at their concert. That's how they got.
Yes, that's how they got.
That's right.
Girl, you know it's. Girl, you know it's. Girl, you know it's good.
For some reason, that's not,
Yep. Start off right with the governor. That's why you leave with the fact that, hey,
Adrian, I think you should bust out with some butter. See, now wouldn't it be fun to have me sit closer to you?
Okay, go.
Wouldn't it be fun to have me sit closer to you?
Are you logged into the, where's the WebEx?
Be dangerous.
Yeah, how about you?
You gotta log into WebEx.
Things going along as normal or?
that's the question. And I had no advance warning.
Brutal, isn't it?
I watched it.
Yeah.
It's, I tell you, Hope has taken this whole thing so hard.
I had to like really hide under a blanket for a few minutes. This is really not
All
good.
that. sat at home the week before because
It's gonna be a
she
long
was
summer,
supposed to
and
go
it's gonna
Hawaii
be
with the
interesting to see
band.
too, like what activities
chose to.
become available during the summer, you know, like
Rather
what
than
people are
go
comfortable
on
with.
a trip she's been dreaming about since sixth
Right,
grade.
right.
I felt so bad. And
But everyone's doing okay at home?
friends coming up. She can't see him.
Yeah, no,
We-
he's been
we,
killed. Fight each other, so I consider that a success, you know?
One Saturday, I'm like, why don't we go to the store? We will buy a bunch of stuff. You can make Easter baskets for your friends.
Oh, awesome.
We bought all of this. We had latex gloves on. We wiped everything with
there's a ton of projects
Clorox
going on right
wipes
now.
and took
That's
them out
awesome.
for our friends.
Really
and that was
exciting.
just,
It is a lot of work.
they
but
did.
Everyone's gonna
A couple of our
appreciate
friends
it,
have,
so
have
you're
done the
awesome.
same. Now they've got there's a local group and then there's a Texas group where people are adopting seniors and sending them stuff. So I happened to find a kid that's going to Trinity, where I went to college. So I adopted him. The person that adopted Hope actually went to Grapevine High School.
I'm gonna reiterate it again, and go right to the whole thing again.
It's been really nice from that standpoint.
Have that connection.
She said they're also
Get your
doing
message.
50 cards from 50 states. So somebody posts, I'm in Texas. And the first person who comes back and
Maybe they
says,
won't.
Georgia, you send them a card.
I didn't see their truck out there
So
anymore.
They may have
all these
decided against it,
kids
Mary.
do a mad rush to get all
may have
of their
decided
50
against it.
states. So they've been sitting home, that's why she painted that. She was making Texas
I got
flags.
kids out there looking, see if they're out there.
So that's gonna be her card that she sends out. So we're trying to do something. I mean, you can really tell though, she's such a social kid and it's just eating her alive.
They were right in front.
And it's funny because
Yeah, I'm checking it out.
high school and Heritage,
Yeah, we,
Heritage, they've given out their caps and
Yeah.
gowns. I guess they've
Yeah.
gotten their yearbooks. Grapevine High will not give them their caps and gowns.
yeah,
No idea.
okay.
The only thing that Grapevine High has ever said directly to seniors, they didn't send to the seniors, they sent it to the parents. I'm so freaking mad at them. They just, I mean, you see, one principal in Houston went and visited every one of his seniors. I'm like, that's what you should be doing. Take leadership, connect with them, let them know that you care. Yeah, just something to let them know.
Yeah,
that
message
you
doesn't
care.
change, so.
You know, a lot
Message
of
doesn't
them
change.
Oh, I was gonna say, if they
She's
do
got
show
a-
up where
got a
we're
little-
started in the middle, I'm gonna stop and start.
literally in the same hospital the same day.
Take the chance of them.
Yeah,
Their sister from
and just editing it out. Yeah.
and she goes to Marcus High School, and
Okay.
they made.
So if you do that, we won't think you're crazy. Well,
Yeah, please, I mean, I'm sure you will.
Mayor, you already said that.
So,
That's the
Grapevine,
plan.
we're
That's
having to
right. Okay,
order
got
a
it.
sign and pay for it,
Okay.
and it's not even
So are
through
you
school.
feeling real retired these days? Are you feeling real retired these days? Yeah.
Yes, I was telling you, you know,
Thankfully,
when this all started, I said,
she's gotten.
you know,
They have.
now I
she's
never
been
know
real
again.
focused
When the
on
weekend is,
finding
I know when it's Saturday. Before I didn't, that weekend
They
mattered.
have a big-
I'm working,
They have this.
you know,
group
I'm up there every day all day.
Yeah.
next days.
Well, you've been
Yeah,
doing
it
an awesome
really
job.
is pretty much swipe
You've
right.
been doing an awesome job.
But she's found a girl on
I
there.
appreciate what you're doing.
She was trying out for the dance team out there, and of course that got canned, and then they went to videos. So we spent all weekend last weekend. I would think so too, but she's not ever done dance team, so
Yeah, I have it ready, exactly.
it's a little bit different skill set. I think they'll probably pick her because she's a dancer, and she went to one camp. They had one camp, and then the second one, I think, got canceled. So they at least got some exposure to seeing her, and she said some of her moves were better than some of the girls who had been in drill teams and that. So we'll just see what happens, but I'm hoping and praying they pick her. Exactly.
Or all of the above.
That's been her focus now because I mean, she's
Timmy,
basically
there's a lot of
done with
people that have been-
dance here.
trained to be afraid.
Her studio's
Yeah, it's
closed,
hard to untrain a
she
friend.
can't go to the
Absolutely,
studio.
especially
She's
in the
supposed to
middle of
do a
something
senior performance.
happening.
So
We don't know if
There always
that's
has
ever
to be
gonna happen.
somebody that leads.
So it's
The
been,
first buffalo to jump into the crop-infested river.
I,
and
I don't
then
even
the
know
others
how
follow.
you deal
Right.
with
So,
kids
maybe that's
on
us.
the younger end that are
It's pretty cool.
for Savannah all by herself.
Yeah, my husband.
Well, and the mayor he did probably 4 or 5 interviews today
Yeah,
for
it's,
TV channels.
You know,
He
it's
did a great job. He was right on message. He was very clear and articulate. And
Yeah.
he basically told our story. And
the break in.
they can agree to disagree with it,
That's fine.
but they couldn't argue that our story wasn't well thought out, well prepared, and based upon a sound logic that makes sense.
yeah,
Right, and that's one thing he's so,
yeah.
such a strength of
And
his.
she's bouncing
present
off the
things in
walls.
those ways.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as
Well, he really
something
wondered what he said to
happens,
him.
Oh, as soon as we get
Well,
this,
you let me
You know,
know
the data
because
says this, and the mayor
Hope
says,
loves
no, the
sitting
data
with
says-
her.
The data says this, and she said,
Yes.
no, I just, I saw the data, and it says the other thing. He goes, no, she said, he said, when do you see it? She said, 3 hours ago. He says, well, I've got it right in front of me right now on the screen. And so he was respectful, but clear, and no, this is what the truth is, and here's how I'm gonna represent it, and we can agree to disagree. We can call it up on your computer right now and see it. Right. It is what it is.
oh,
And he said,
did hear his
it's done.
position towards the end of
You know, it
27th.
is,
I
Yeah.
did hear him say both of those.
so, yeah, I like that. I love that
really
about
don't
him.
think
I
it
do too.
matters whether it's Friday or Monday. I think Monday's probably fine.
I haven't possibly on yet. Maybe do the WebEx connections.
Yeah, what's he got ready?
No, you're correct. I did hear
You can't get the auditor, are you working on it?
Yeah, I think that's him. I'm gonna go down there and meet him.
Okay, and if it won't work, I'll put up my computer out there and run it through the speaker on the dais.
So we'll get ready. You may have
Let's
to
see
do
if I
that.
can do it right now.
Are we just having trouble with the clip, Jerry?
And we might do a quick one.
There you go.
Bobby, can you hear that? Yeah, we have to hear. Yes, we can hear.
Okay.
Can you see it okay? Yes.
We can see it.
Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah. Okay, excellent. Now, Brooks.
Turn it up a little, Chris.
Hello.
Chris, you might want to turn it up a little.
Hello, Governor.
Hi Brooks, thanks for coming. We're making sure we can get this video so we can show it before we start, so we're starting a little late, so
Hey, no problem.
thank you.
Yeah.
Never been in a meeting you started late. First times for everything.
Yeah, well, special time,
That's right,
special
that's
times.
right. Special exception.
Special,
We're gonna make it.
yeah,
Hi, Miss Kathy.
make the downloads.
Okay. Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, for the items, let's see. Yeah, so
Yeah.
9A is tabled,
Oh.
so I can turn this in, but yes, the, none of these, this was just
Mayor.
basic comment.
Yes,
I told them when they run the video, if it's not loud enough, they turn it up, restart it again. We don't want to miss any parts of it.
yes, right.
Because early in the video, the
Jerry.
question's being asked from away, so that it's quiet. Thank you.
Okay, let's wait on-
I don't know that I heard it. I saw it. Okay. You want to take it? Okay.
They can hear it just fine.
Then when I probably did, it was just all the noise started at once for us, so I may not have been listening for that.
Okay.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi Kathy. You gave a copy of these.
Yes, those all should be for everybody here.
Okay.
Just in case anyone needs to refer to it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
What didn't,
This copy of the proclamation, then I got copies of the letters, and then there's also copies of the letter and the fact sheet, so,
Okay.
yeah, it should be
fact
everything in
sheet's
there.
not in there.
That's
Oh, the fact sheet.
Yeah,
It's all
Top
fancy.
one.
yeah. Thank you.
Part-
Yep, I'm passing them out right now. Thank you, Christine. The proclamation, the fact sheet, and the letter.
Okay, great, thank you.
Here you go, Rainbow, right?
That's for Savannah.
It's gonna be be a fun picture to reshoot.
My daughter did that.
Except for I might,
Yeah.
When it's
It will-
finished,
it
it'll
will.
be really
Yes.
cool.
since I can't have real champagne bubbles at work, I can at least blow bubbles.
There you go.
So if we have any reason to celebrate, I'm prepared.
Yes.
Excellent.
Every
She
day
is
a reason to
armed.
celebrate.
I'm
Your
gonna blow
bubble
bubbles
wand.
if you have something to celebrate.
Okay, good.
Here's 2 extra copies, an extra copy in case
Great.
you need to give
Okay.
someone. They can have mine if they need it as well.
Okay, now, I'm not doing any other announcement. I'll do the Arbor proclamation after
Yeah.
this, if that's it.
Yep. You can do that at the end if you want.
Yeah, I'll do it after we do the proclamation.
It's a toucan night.
Yeah. I
Should've
need,
gotten another one.
Well, let me get you one. I'll get a water.
Are you going to get water?
Yeah, I'll get you.
Yep, you get me one. Which fridge are you going to?
Oh,
Which one should I go to? This one?
That one doesn't have the ones I like.
that one is the council one, it's
They
the
don't have
crappy
the
water.
No, but they, I feel like they only ever had lemon and lime over there. Did you get that one over there? No. I feel like I must go after Tuesday night, because then they're all gone with the ones I like.
They've been very
Well, we
meager
weren't
selections
getting,
recently. Today it was
well,
full, but
The
I
the
started-
grapefruit ones, I
Yeah.
like those.
Well, yeah, I have to have like the non-lemon lime one.
Uh-huh.
So I have a box over there, because I feel like the other ones are all gone. That and our bougie chocolate.
nice.
Gotta have.
Jerry
good
finally got
chocolate.
fed up with the Hershey's and had to have the Dove.
I love it.
He told Christine Johnson, I need some of that bougie chocolate.
Oh my gosh. This isn't cutting it anymore.
Which is funny, because he makes fun of me for the bougie water.
That's unfortunately something I've taught my daughter too, is this is good chocolate, this is not.
That's okay.
I'm pretty proud of that.
You need a water?
Hey,
I'm good, thank you.
ask Savannah
Good,
what
Mary?
she wants.
I'm good, thanks.
Christine, you want a water? I'll put it down
That's
by you.
just called good parenting.
Yes, it is.
It's very cool.
Unfortunately, we haven't gotten to that point with my child.
Yes, Savannah's favorite
She's-
meals are steak with blue cheese and salmon and asparagus.
She is actually becoming more and more vegetarian every day. She's cut out all of the dairy products except for cheese.
Probably not, you know, it's probably a pretty healthy choice, but
I respect the choice, but I refuse to agree that almonds give milk. They do not. Nor do oats. But I tell you what, she made this oregano parmesan bread the other day.
is it really good?
It was fantastic. I wouldn't doubt it.
Mastermind.
She made a whole
Marketing group, you know,
bunch
focus group.
of cake pops, and no one's eating them. We have like 50 cake pops.
I brought a plate of cookies up here. We took like,
No, it was thoughtfully done, very.
we delivered cookies for friends and our godson.
Yeah, I saw your pictures.
Yeah, I was like, we can have all these in the house.
Now,
Yes, it's one of those things you never get to talk to.
Dee posted
Right.
something out there
One thing
on
bad is-
Facebook about Hope being down. So now all of these people are wanting to come and bring her stuff, which is fantastic. I love it. It's a lot of people that I worked with on the 3-day walks and some of the other volunteer things, so it's
Yeah, that's probably the
fantastic.
same group setting up
But
for an after shop.
I've already been forewarned that much food is coming with this. And I've already been visiting, I have visited almost every restaurant in this town at least
So y'all
once.
are probably like about,
I'm gonna explode.
Every night, 5 minute strokes, does this sports? He does, that's fine. Different views of the fountain. And if you watch, he does the sports. And he goes, there's Gretchen.
Exciting night.
They were here at 5 o'clock for the 5 o'clock game.
Your lines are It's like it's so bad I don't mean to laugh, but it's true. We're all thinking it. Absolutely, absolutely. It's a bit much, yes.
What channel is that?
How's that?
Is that 11? 11. At least that's what I heard.
Workers across the street roofing the neighbor's house. They got into it big time.
Oh, really?
They're from down.
The biggest reason is showing respect.
Just interesting, yeah.
Lose track.
I know, I hear you. And we don't watch regular TV anymore, you know, so, yeah,
Kathy,
hard to keep track.
hot mics.
Okay.
Yes.
If you don't mind me just putting this up here, that will solve the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anywhere around here?
Yeah, well, you want it right in front of me?
Yeah, that's fine right there. Perfect like that.
Because I have a soft voice.
Okay. I'll do that.
You may miss,
It's pretty good.
is it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll hope we can get.
You ready? Okay. So Chris and Mark, we're ready to go when you guys are.
We need Tammy.
Pardon? Yeah, okay, he's coming. Tammy. Okay, I think everybody on WebEx is ready to go also. I'm getting ready to open the meeting unless somebody gives me a thumbs down. So we're good. Because are we on video? Started. Okay, so I'm gonna call the regular city council meeting of the city of Colleyville to order for April the 21st, 2020. And we're a little late. It is 7:50, so we are now in order. Let me call the row. Councilmember Nakamura.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
The mayor is here. Councilmember Dodson.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Rigney.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So we are all here. We will open as we always do with an invocation that will be given this evening by Brooks Talbert, and we really appreciate you being here, Brooks, and Brooks is going to be on WebEx. So all of us in the room, if we'd stand for the invocation, and we'll.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this time. We are living in uncertain times right now, and it can be really scary to a lot of people in our community, Lord. So I just ask right now for wisdom over our leaders here in this room and over WebEx, wherever they're watching from, God. I just ask for wisdom over them. I ask, Lord, that your Spirit would move, that they would listen to you, Father, before they make decisions. God, that you'd be involved in all of it, involved in everything going on. And God, we thank you for your goodness, though, and all the good things you're doing in our community, all the great things that our community is doing and how they're stepping out at this time, Lord. So we just thank you. We thank you for your son, Jesus. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let's have the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
The United States.
States of America,
to the republic
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. That's different when some people are on WebEx, there's a delay. But
Yes,
Pastor Talbot, we really appreciate you being here. I tell you, I say this often, there's nothing more important than prayer, especially at a time like this. We all need it, the city needs it, the country needs it. So thank you very much.
absolutely.
And I just,
Take care.
I had a conference call meeting today with our ministerial alliance, all the pastors in town, and touch base with them every couple of weeks on the phone now since we can't meet in person, and they're very helpful. So we appreciate all of you. So again, I want to welcome everyone. Again, I want to apologize for starting late. I've never started a meeting late, but we did tonight. We have a special guest. CBS 11 is with us tonight, and they were setting up their cameras, and they're going to be filming some of this. I wanted to be sure they were able to see us when we started the conversation. So you see the agenda. We just came out of executive session, as we normally do. And we have agenda item 2 there for the purpose that if we had any action that we needed to take out of executive session, we could do it at agenda 2. Tonight, we do not have any action we need to take publicly tonight, so we're going to skip agenda item 2 and go straight to agenda item 3, which is announcements, proclamations, and presentations. So tonight is a little different. Normally we have a whole series of announcements on various topics, and we actually have those tonight. However, today we're going to use the time to discuss, and I will make announcements about the proclamation that I issued yesterday. There's been a lot of conversation today. I spent my day talking on the phone to many people, from citizens to businesses to news media, and in fact, I want to apologize to Channel 11. Giles' husband and Rob Owens had called and emailed and wanted to talk to me, and unfortunately, I was going down the list of all of them. I didn't get to them before I had to go into meetings, so I apologize to you guys. So they are here tonight filming, and we welcome them, and we're glad that they're here. So typically, what I've been doing over the last several weeks since the COVID pandemic started is giving you an update on where we are. So as I've just mentioned, I issued a proclamation yesterday that's pretty simple and straightforward that speaks to several items. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Governor Abbott had issued some changes just recently, and we reacted to that and issued our own. So I always am very careful to point out our strategy in Colleyville is we are going to follow the guidance of the President of the United States, CDC, and Governor Abbott, and we will always fall in line with them. So when Governor Abbott issues an order, and he issued 3 orders recently, and we look at those orders and we implement those orders in manners that are consistent with Colleyville, our local city. And so we're a small city, and we have differences from large cities, and so there's some things that we can do for our businesses, which are typically small businesses. But I want to reiterate that we only issue those orders to be consistent with Governor Abbott's order. And so today, many of the calls and questions that we had to do with, are you really being consistent with Governor Abbott's order? And so we are, and so Governor Abbott had a news conference this afternoon about 2 o'clock, and we actually caught some of that. And so I wanted to first start off by playing the last question that he was asked in that press conference today, because it actually specifically had to do with Colleyville and our proclamation. So rather than me try to describe what I think, we'll just listen to the governor directly. So do we have that we can play?
The order overrules local orders, but we've seen that the Colleyville Mayor, Richard Newton, had issued a proclamation that goes beyond your order, and those will go into effect this Friday, allowing for people to eat at restaurant patios? And do you condone orders like that that are in the face of yours? And will you take any action to ensure that they don't go into effect ahead of your new restrictions on Monday?
Well, I had the chance to read his proclamation, and from everything that I can tell, when he wrote in that proclamation, he made deference to the executive order that it issued. It seemed like he was writing his policies in a way that tried to parallel or be in agreement with what was in my executive order. Look at what he said with regard to additional types of medical practices, et cetera. And so, to the extent that there may be a strategy that he's implementing that he thinks may be consistent with my executive order, I'm sure my staff will just talk to him and make sure he understands what is an agreement, which I think much of what was in his proclamation is in agreement with my executive order. If there's something not in agreement, we'll be happy to talk to him about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the audio on that was difficult to hear. I don't know, some of, Callie and Bobby and George and Whit, could y'all understand that?
We did hear it.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard it.
And you could understand it?
Yes.
Okay, and by the way, I forgot to mention, this is a hybrid meeting as we've been having the last several weeks where Councilmember Callie, Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood, Councilmember Dodson, and City Attorney Whit White are on WebEx. So you can see them on the screen, so they're or with us, and we can interact with them, and they will be voting tonight on things that we need to vote. So I guess here's my question. Could the audience understand that's watching us on video?
I'm not certain, Mayor. I think that Chris, I asked him to turn the volume up. He just turned the volume up. I could see on his screen, so we might could try to play it again.
Okay, well, let's try it again and just to see, because it was difficult to understand.
I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, I couldn't either. So let's try it once again. The other option is we could play it off of that down there.
Yes, sir.
Maybe.
The follow-up to
We'll just talk to him and make sure he understands.
an earlier question, you had talked about how the statewide order overrules local orders, but we've seen that the Colleyville Mayor, Richard Newton, had issued a proclamation that goes beyond your order, and those will go into effect this Friday, allowing for people to eat at restaurant patios. And do you condone orders like that that are in the face of yours, and will you take any action to ensure that they don't go into effect ahead of your new restrictions on Monday?
Well, I had the chance to read his proclamation, and from everything that I can tell, when he wrote in that proclamation, he made deference to the executive order that I issued. It seemed like he was writing his policies in a way that tried to parallel or be in agreement with what was in my executive order. Look at what he said with regard to additional types of medical practices, et cetera. And so, to the extent that there may be a strategy that he's implementing that he thinks may be consistent with my executive order, I'm sure my staff will just talk to him and make sure he understands what is an agreement, which I think much of what was in his proclamation is in agreement with my executive order. If there's something not in agreement, we'll be happy to talk to him about it.
Okay, very good. Thank you for playing it again. I could hear it a lot better. Councilmember Wheat said you heard from somebody at home.
My husband just texted me, I'm on my watch, and he said he's watching it at home. He heard it fine, so.
Okay, so we will trust that everyone could hear that. It may have been harder to hear in here than out there. At any rate, basically, the question was, did we overstep our boundaries and not follow the governor's order? The governor said basically, no, he read our documents, and his staff did, and they felt like we were very deferential to the governor's order, as we always have been and will intend to be, and it was consistent with his order. And so we can talk more about that. Different people may have different opinions about that, but the governor's opinion is the one that makes a difference to me. In the last part of the governor's statement, he said, well, if there's anything there, maybe something little, we'll have our staff talk to them. So I just wanted to report to the council this afternoon. I did talk to the Deputy Attorney General. He called me, and we had a nice conversation. And he basically said, I'm calling to let you know that we've looked at the information, and most of the other mayors, a lot of other mayors have called and asking for assistance and wanted to make that available to you. So wanted to call you and let you know we're here to help you however we can. and we will set an appointment up to talk some more tomorrow. So we are in conversation with the Deputy Attorney General. And again, I think that Governor Abbott has done a fantastic job. He's doing a super job of leading the state. I think he's making great decisions. He's always including local officials because he understands the importance of the local officials understanding their entity, whether it's a county or a city, and knows the details, and he wants the local entities to participate in the process of ensuring that we're all handling this pandemic appropriately to ensure the safety of our citizens, and also doing everything we can to help our businesses at the appropriate time in a safe manner. I also want to say I have conference calls multiple times a week with Tarrant County Judge Whitley and other mayors of Tarrant County, so we communicate quite often. So I also want to compliment Judge Whitley on the work he's done with the counties. And I'm going to comment on why that's true a little bit more, but I want to first address the questions that I've been asked a lot today about the proclamation, and I can go into the proclamation. So let me do that right quick before I run through the whys and the wherefores of what we've done. So for those that haven't seen it, and we may have a lot of citizens that haven't yet, basically it has basically 6 components. The first component has to do with religious services conducted in churches and congregations and houses of worship. The governor made some adjustment to his orders recently. He did that in response to the Attorney General's assessment of this. And so all we did was actually modify ours slightly to be in complete and total conformance with his. And so, and what was done will bring the pastors and leaders of the church into the decision process of what they do. But simply put, we are continuing to tell the churches and the leadership of the churches, we encourage that you continue to have services remotely. All of the churches in Colleyville have done that. And I had a conference call with all the pastors today that's a member of the Ministerial Alliance, and we discussed this proclamation and discussed with them how they're having services, and they were asking questions of me. And of course, I let them know, according to the proclamations of both Governor Abbott and the city, they are part of the decision process. What the order says from Governor Abbott is you're encouraged to have services remotely. If you can't do that, then you can have services. You can decide to have services in your house of worship. And so let them know they're part of that decision process. And they all said, well, we've been doing it remotely, and we plan to continue to do it remotely. And they ask, well, will you continue to update us on where the city is and what you think as time goes on, and when we should all feel comfortable of making a different decision? And I said, yes, this is all changing very rapidly on a daily to weekly basis. But what I've been doing in the city of Colleyville is giving video updates to the entire city every week. I will do another one this week, and I told them, of course, I can assure you next week we will have more to say, and things will have changed by then. So we had a great conversation. The second item in the proclamation dealt with elective surgery. Governor Abbott opened up for elective surgery if 2 conditions were met. One is there had to be 25% hospital capacity available for COVID patients, and 2, whoever was doing that process could not request from public entities PPE. They had to have their own PPE. So given if somebody, a doctor, satisfied those requirements, they were free to have elective surgery. The third one that we had in ours was gatherings of 10, groups of 10 people. Gatherings are limited to 10 people. What we had said in the city proclamation previously, those 10 people had to be family members. In this current proclamation, we open that up. They no longer have to be family members. They can be just 10 people. So that was the third thing. And then all those were effective immediately when I issued this yesterday. The next 3 are effective April the 24th at 12:01 a.m., which is consistent with Governor Abbott's orders. And these are the ones that had all the questions today, actually, because they dealt with retail establishments. And our first one said retail establishments that are not deemed essential services. And by the way, we made no changes in what we say are essential services. We're complete conformance with the governor on that right now. What the governor order says is non-essential services and retail establishments cannot be open to the general public. Okay, so the general public can't just decide I'm going to go into this store or that store. But what we did was we took that one nuance further. We said, fine, we're in complete agreement with that. However, we do have establishments, currently our doors, and it's okay with the governor, do call-in orders and things of that nature. And so we're saying if a store is in operation, in other words, nothing stopping the owners from being in there now and doing the things they need to do, if they can have appointments with specific people to come into the store and transact business. So that's not the general public, that's a specific person. They know they're coming, and they know how many is going to be there. Therefore, they can apply all the other requirements, which are physical distancing and all the safety requirements that would be required. And so that is the approach that we took. We also allowed that to be applied to training-led instruction. And we also attached to that this idea of 10 people. So you could have a training, whether that be physical training or yoga training, or because there's various businesses in Colleyville that do those things, very small operations, not big operations. And by appointment, that can occur again, because by appointment, you can prepare for that in a safe manner. The other thing that we said was restaurants, Governor Abbott's order, or you cannot go in a restaurant and sit down inside the building and be served food. We're in agreement with that. We've behaved that way. The nuance that we said in this order was for those restaurants that have outdoor seating, they might have a couple of tables, and we have a lot of small restaurants, independent operations especially, they have a table or two outside, that as long as the safety precautions are taken with regard to physical distancing and other things, it's okay to use those outside tables. And so that was the change that we made to our order. Did I forget anything, Mr. City Manager?
The hands-on salons also were under the...
Yeah, and okay, yeah, we had a category called hands-on businesses, and really when I was talking about the retail establishments with being by appointment basis, that applied to those also. So again, we believed, and we worked very hard on this, thought very much about it, debated it. We believe we're in conformance with the governor, and I believe the governor agrees with that, as he so said in that news conference. If the Attorney General wants to talk to us about any nuances of that, happy to talk to them. Our position has been we will continue to be in conformance with Governor Abbott's orders. If Governor Abbott asked us to make some slight changes, then we would do that, no problem. And so that's kind of the brunt of the question today. But the other question had to do with why did we make the change? And so I do want to talk about that somewhat. We made the change for a couple of reasons. One, I've already mentioned, Governor Abbott made a change, and so we're always going to look at that change, the implementation of that change, from the viewpoint of Colleyville and what's good for Colleyville citizens and Colleyville businesses. The other thing is when this whole, when the government entities from cities to counties to states to president began to put in place restrictions on businesses and on citizens, the reason for that was at the early stages of the COVID pandemic, there was very little data. We knew very little about the virus. The data that we did have from other countries, the virus ramped up very quickly. We didn't understand a lot about it. We didn't have very much data, so the models at that time predicted very large infections and very large deaths and whatnot. So as time has gone on, we have much more data. Believe me, we're tracking, everyone is tracking data on a daily basis. And so you get a better perspective on what's happened in the context, better perspective on the context. We also have a lot clearer understanding of how do you protect yourself from the virus. And let me say this, and you're going to hear me say this several times. I tried to reinforce with everyone I talked to today, especially the news media. The only defense that any of us personally have against the virus is not what government entities are doing. It's what we individually do and the decisions that we individually make to protect ourselves personally. What do I mean by that? We are all trying to educate citizens, businesses, everyone that's in any kind of operation. It's important. Wash your hands often. Cover your face. Do not touch your face. When you be careful where you go, and if you go somewhere outside of your home and you're touching things, etc., when you come home, wash your hands and be very careful. So do the things that are important to keep you and your family and your friends or those around you safe. So we have great citizens in Colleyville. When I go out, I see people doing that, very educated people, and so I always compliment our citizens because they're great at this stuff. And that's for no matter what decisions the governments make, that's the most important thing to do. Now, I said all that to say some people don't agree, and that's perfectly okay with our decision that the things we did in this proclamation are consistent with Governor Abbott. They may say their point of view is different, and that's okay. All of us are entitled to our position and our opinion. However, when it comes to our personal safety, I think it's important that we're also, each one of us make many decisions a day. And I'm just encouraging people, especially anyone that's uncomfortable with, let's say, so a business can now make an appointment and somebody can go in the business and transact business. If you're uncomfortable doing that, don't do that. If you're uncomfortable. So many stores are open today. The grocery stores are open, Ace Hardware is open. People go in there a lot, and I've heard people comment, well, everybody doesn't have a mask on. Well, you can't control everybody, but if you're uncomfortable with any of that, simply make a decision not to go in there or leave when that happens, come back at a different time, make that decision, keep yourself safe. Everybody has a right to that opinion and making their own decisions. As a matter of fact, as we begin to open up things, which is what we've done, we're beginning to do things that we can to open up as long as we're consistent with the governor. In that process, assess that yourself and only do the things that you're comfortable with. Keep yourself safe. So that's a message, I think that's an important message that we all need to think about and act on. Now, the other factor around I want to show first, can you show that model? Because I now want to talk a little bit about data. I tell everybody today I'm an engineer by training, so I make decisions based on information and data. And I always want to be in a position to explain to anyone why a decision was made. So that's what I'm going to set about showing you some data right now to give you a context within which we're making these decisions. So Mark is going to put up a model. So all of us, well, what we're doing is we're looking at the model from the University of Washington. And so I believe that's one of the best models, best reflects what's actually going on today. And that model predicts over time various things. How many people will get the virus, how many hospital beds will be needed in various categories, all hospital beds, ICU beds, ventilators. This particular one here is the model of the prediction of deaths, and this is for Texas. And so you can see the red solid bar on the left-hand side is the actual data. This is true, real data, so that's factual information. The shaded area and the dotted line is where the model, that's the future, that hasn't happened yet. So the model based on the previous data is predicting what the future will look like. And you can see a solid dotted line, and then you'll see a shaded area. Well, the shaded area is plus or 95% confidence intervals. These are statistical models, and so that said, well, the worst case is the top of that shade, which shows 160 deaths in Texas. The bottom of the shade, which nearly looks like 0, but it's not quite, is the lower limit. That's the best case estimate. The average estimate is the dotted line. So you can see what I wanted to point out is the model predictions are say, hey, we should be right at the peak about now. And actually, if you look at other data, we may be just, a day past the peak. Doesn't matter. We're basically at the peak. And the model is predicting that it's going to roll off in May, and toward the latter part of May, we should roll off to virtually nothing, no deaths. That's good. That's where we want to be. And so when the government entities started putting restrictions on people and businesses, the primary reason for that is the model predictions early on were horrendous. And everybody was scared of that. And the predictions of we're not going to have nearly enough hospital beds when we hit the peak. And so Governor Abbott did a fantastic job, and all the hospital CEOs and leaders did a fantastic job in Texas of making available more bed capacity. I think Judd Whitley did a fantastic job in Tarrant County working with hospital administrators in Tarrant County. So what's the result of that today? In Tarrant County, there is a hospital bed capacity of a little over 5,800 beds. Today, looking at everyone that's in the hospital, only 50% of that capacity is actually used today. So there is 50% capacity available today for whoever needs it. And we're at the peak. This plot shows we're at the peak. So the dire predictions of not having enough hospital beds at the peak have not panned out because of people's work of making them available. So I say, great, we're successful. We're successful. We have plenty of hospital capacity. Another piece of data that's very important in Tarrant County, we have, I think it's 123 or 130 patients, I think it's 123, patients in, I got the data here in a minute, patients in hospital beds in Tarrant County that actually are COVID patients. 123. That's out of a 5,800 bed capacity, of which half of that is available. So the COVID patients are really a very, very tiny part, like 4% of our total hospital bed capacity. So again, that's real data. I mean, there's nothing modeling about that. That's real data. That's great news, fantastic news. And so that says, and we're at the peak, so we're doing pretty good. That says to me, and in fact, I want to show some more data. I think go to the other slides I wanted to show. It might take us a second to get those up. Okay, so yeah, so I just showed you the model, and that was for Texas, and that was for death. So this is Tarrant County. This is actually data. We plotted it ourselves from the Tarrant County website, and there's kind of the, whatever you call that color that goes all the way to the right. Teal, yeah, thank you, Kathy. That's teal. That teal color is positive cases. So that's actually positive cases in Tarrant County, which shows, and that shows it over time up to like today. And it says, okay, we're up to, what, a little over 1,200 positive cases. The darker blue is actually active cases because we have people that have recovered. And so the positive cases, which is a test of positive, and then however many recoveries you have are the active cases. So the blue dots are the active cases. So again, I just wanted to show that okay, we take it from Texas and we take it down to Tarrant County and we're looking at real data, and you can see it's flattening off. So it looks like we're at the peak. So we'll find out as that time goes on, but I'm pretty convinced, based on the modeling and other data, that we are at the peak. But that remains to be seen. Next week, we'll see more data and we'll tell you. But anyway, It didn't skyrocket straight up. It's already at the rollover stage. And that's what I hear everyone saying. Not just me. I hear the other elected officials, not even just in Tarrant County, but elsewhere saying that. You even heard Governor Abbott saying, hey, that's the reason he's starting to make some changes. It's time to start reacting to the data and start opening up. Now, the whole question is, how do we open up? How do we do it safely? Because number one is still safety. The reason, I don't think I said this, maybe I did, the reason he chose to allow elective surgeries now is because we have 50% in Tarrant County hospital bed capacity available. And so the caveat on that elective surgery was, he says you can do elective surgery as long as there's at least 25% hospital capacity bed available for COVID patients. We're well outside of that. And, okay, so if PPE has been a challenge, don't use any public PPE, use your own. So that's very rational, that's very data-driven, makes a lot of sense, and so that's what he's done. Based on that data, is why he's done that. So would you go to the next one?
Wait, Mayor, before you do,
Yes.
on the bottom, the white and the black is the recovered and the deaths.
Yes, and so, yeah, the deaths on this one, I'm sorry, it's there, it just looked like a straight line at the bottom, and that's because on the scale, the deaths are so low. So,
The recoveries are in white, they're hard to see, but they're also increasing.
yeah, okay. So anyway, but that's real data. So we'll see some of those numbers here in just a second. Would you show the next one? Now, let's go back to Texas. And so another context of how to look at all these numbers is based on population. You know, typically everybody says that. Well, in Texas, we have approximately 29 million people in Texas. We have had 169,000 tested positive in Texas to date as of right now. So 169,000 in Texas, positive cases out of 29 million people is 0.0055% of a person, which means a half of,
I think that number, that 169,000, is just tests.
That's total tested.
17.
Yeah, it's just never tested, yeah.
The 17,000.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, excuse me, I hadn't got there yet. That's tested. Yeah, that's how many have been tested. You're right, thank you. I got ahead of myself. That's how many tested. By the way, there's about 10% of the people tested are actually positive or so. So the next number, 17,000, is how many of those tests were positive in Texas. Thank you very much. So 17,000 were positive, which is 0.0006 of a person, or 0.06 of the population. How many of those were hospitalized? About 1,500 for COVID-19. That's 0.005% of the population of Texas. How many deaths? There's 428 deaths. That's approximately 1/1,000% of the population of Texas. The point I'm making, the context here, is this is a very, very, very tiny fraction of the population. Let's take it let's go down to Tarrant County now. I think the next one is Tarrant County. Okay, in Tarrant County, we have about 2.1 million people, so the similar numbers. So positive test cases, 1,333. That's 0.06% of Tarrant County. 132 hospitalized for COVID-19, 0.001% of Tarrant County. 42 deaths, that's 0.001% of Tarrant County. I make this point just to say these numbers are consistent. Tarrant County is a little better off than Texas, but they're a minuscule amount of the population. Now for Colleyville, we currently have 12 active cases in Colleyville. We have had no deaths. Thankful for that, we have no deaths. And that's COVID-19, not COVID-10. Anyway, 12 active in Colleyville is 0.04%. Again, it's consistent. Now, Colleyville is a very tiny sample. So because the sample is so small, you say, well, statistically, is all that important? So that's why I showed all the other numbers. They're all very consistent. So where you look from our city all the way to the state, the numbers are consistent. This is wonderful news. This is great news. And so that's why I say if you look at the context of the data, Fortunately, it hadn't panned out as originally expected when there was no data and people knew very little about this disease. What's the next slide, Mark? Okay, now, another part of the context. So this gets compared to many other things. And so you never see these numbers. So I thought, well, okay, let's look at those numbers. So if you look at heart disease, this is in the U.S. 647,000 people die every year of heart disease. Cancer, 600,000 people die of cancer. Accidents, 169,000 die of accidents. Chronic lower respiratory disease, 160. And you can read these numbers yourself. Going down to suicide is 47,000, and influenza and pneumonia is 55,000. And so do we have additional numbers or not? I can't remember. No. Okay, so where does the current predictions for COVID-19 come in? They come in right at the bottom, right at the influenza in November numbers. So, these again are estimates because we're not at total yet, but we're well below that right now. I think, 20 or 30,000. But in the end, I think the models are now predicting somewhere in the range of 55, 60, 65,000. So the context is meaningful because, and I'm saying all this because I think when this all started, the numbers and what was said everywhere in the news media and everybody was giving press conferences really was very, very, very scary. I think we're past that. Now, so you can see we don't expect the deaths now. Any death is terrible and it's tragic. And you say, well, it's a difference in heart disease and COVID pandemic, and that's true. So what's the difference in a pandemic and any other disease that's going on all year? The difference is pandemics happen quickly and they happen all at one time. And you can see that in the plot I showed. It comes up quick, it peaks, and it goes off quick. So that's why that peak was really important. And how high was it going to be, and could we handle it medically or not? Fortunately, we have been able to handle it with the capacity that's been generated. The other thing about the COVID-19, it was new. We knew nothing about it. It was very contagious. We didn't know how to deal with that. We didn't have a way to medically treat, well, we treat it, but not to,
Immunity?
yeah.
Vaccine.
Vaccine, we did have a vaccine. So, hopefully next year we'll have a vaccine. But we've learned a lot. And even with all that, the numbers are falling into the range that match other diseases. That's what's important. Therefore, all that said, that's the other reason why it's time to start backing off. And the toll of the restrictions that we put in place as government entities has devastated our businesses. We're a small city. We have small businesses. They're suffering. We've done everything in our power in Colleyville to help our businesses. We've talked to y'all many times about the $35 gift cards. They're being very successful. We issued 20,000 $35 gift cards to citizens so they could go spend that money at businesses. And that would be an infusion of money into our local businesses. And I want to thank the citizens. You've done a great job. I think we're coming up on a 50% mark for the use of those, which is great because we want that money to be in our local small businesses. And we will do other things. We'll do everything we can. But it's time to start getting them back in business so they can start, employ people and start generating revenue. And hopefully, so we got a long way to go, not just with the virus medically, but also with the economy. And we would be doing everything we can. Again, number one priority for us, safety. Anything we do will be based on safety. We will not do it if I don't think, personally, and these other elected officials think, that it cannot be done safely. But doing it safely involves you, the citizens, to help make those decisions and behave in a manner that's safe. So, Mr. City Manager, did I leave anything out? Did I kind of tell the story that I wanted to tell?
No, Mary told the story just how it happened, and it was fantastic.
Okay.
I mean, I think the important elements that you talked about is that not only was this in line with the governor,
Yes.
but it was in line with the data that was presented
Yes.
at various levels. And those are the two indicators we've used from the beginning, and
Yep.
we'll continue to use throughout.
Very good. So now, we have not had a chance as an elected body to talk about this because of the open meetings rules. You know, any one of us can talk to two other people, and that's it. And we really stuck to those rules. And so this is an opportunity. We're at announcements. We can have a discussion of any of this and express our opinions or thoughts or whatever, if whatever you want to say. I've tried to be fairly comprehensive to tell the story since we've got news cameras here to hear it. Hopefully it gets out. But, so the floor is open to all of you. Do you have any questions or comments or things you want to bring up?
Mayor, I think one of the things we want to address is the questions that have been around the restaurants and the salons being open, and any other bodies that have some sort of regulatory control.
Right. Thank you, because I had intended, I just didn't think of that. So what Councilman Kelly's bringing up is a number of the calls today and on social media, and I'll just use some examples, but there's many examples. I'll just use hair salons for one. So hairstylists are licensed by a regulatory entity in the state of Texas. So there's another constraint there that those individuals have to consider. If there's conditions placed on those licenses that they hold from those state entities, they're obligated to live by those restrictions. And so we were asked, well, you're opening up, somebody can make a hair appointment in the salon by an appointment, but man, I'm concerned that my license is issued by a state agency, and their opinion is that we shouldn't do that. The answer is, that's okay. That's your choice. You do not have to do this. You do not have to make an appointment. You do not have to. We're not telling anybody you have to open. In fact, we're just saying this is our opinion of the governor's of what the governor's executive order says, and this is the city's formal opinion, and this is what we are acting on. And so we're trying to communicate to you within the latitude that we have said in our proclamation. You make whatever decision is good for you to make. If your decision is, hey, I'm concerned about it, I'm not going to open, that's okay. Yeah. Make that call. That's your right. You should do that. Now, that business owner is now, we've got them more involved in this process. We're not telling them. We're giving them the latitude to make a decision, as it should be. Government entity should make all the decisions. Citizens should make that decision. In the United States of America, citizens are the only sovereign entity in the, we're not. We're elected by them. We represent citizens. Any of us do. So, thank you. I appreciate that. Any others?
I just wanted to say I'm really proud of Colleyville. The city managers, assistant city managers, mayor has taken the lead on this. And I really appreciate the empowerment we're giving back to our citizens to make their own choice and still make safe choices. So I'm proud of those decisions.
Thank you.
And I would like to make a comment that there's a lot of information out there on whether it be Facebook, Twitter, whatever the social media is, that I've just glanced at today that are not true facts. So I'm hoping everybody will please send this out. You can go to City of Colleyville Government. It will be on, you can see it live now, but of course it's over. I mean, most of it is over. And as soon as the meeting is over, you can see it again. And please send that out to your friends when you hear that, you know, Colleyville's doing a horrible thing. We are following the governor, as the mayor said, and please send that along to all of your friends that are questioning what's going on so that they can have the true facts.
Thank you, Tammy. You made me think of one other thing. So communication is always a challenge, right? Always is. So what we did when we issued this, I wrote a letter, and we sent that letter today to every business in Colleyville. Along with the letter, we sent the proclamation, and we sent a business frequently asked questions and guidelines. So, and these are all on our website. So these are the guidelines. So that's for everyone. So what these guidelines are is if you call the city hall and ask the question about how should something be done, we are referring to these guidelines on how we're going to answer that question. So we tried to put it in writing so you yourself could see what we're thinking and how we're going to answer the question to help. We're welcome to call. Call me, city manager, Adrian, Mark, any of us. But we're just trying to get that information out as best we can.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, George.
Excuse me, George here, George Dodson here. One thing I'd like to point out, we're not doing anything that requires anyone to go out on their own and not practice safe requirements that have been published by the president and the CDC as well as the governor. And so the other thing I would point out is one thing about this disease, it appears from a fatality standpoint to hit those over 65. And so one thing that I think each of us should keep in mind is that while the case might be easier on you, although we're seeing people pass that, are 20 and 30 and 40. So it's not a guarantee that no senior people will pass away. But we all need to keep that in mind. And of course, I think the standards we put in place, or the procedures, definitely cover that. And I'm very proud of that, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, George. That's another point. I didn't comment on the statistics about who does this affect. And so you're exactly right. Like, George, you and me, we're in that category, right? Age category. And so it's factual now, based on the data, that 65 to 70% of the people that really have a serious problem are older than 60. And so what does that mean? That means whatever we do, we need to pay particular attention to the groups that are at more risk from a safety perspective, and they need to pay particular attention. And so we will continue to highlight that, and we'll take that into consideration for anything or any decisions we make in the future. Thanks, George.
Mayor, I have one thing.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Lindewood?
Yes, sir. What I'd like to say is this, is that I know there's people that are just as passionate that want to stay home, and then there's those that are just as passionate to want to go out and do things. And I just ask that everybody respect everybody's decision on what they're going to do. If you don't feel like you need to go out, please don't go out. If you feel like you can abide by these rules and just keep the safe distancing and do the right thing, please, by all means, do those things that are in the guidelines. But here's the one thing: don't ridicule each other about it. These people are taking their risk the way they want to, and these people, so don't make fun of those that stay home. Don't make fun of those that stay out there. This is a trying new time that nobody really knows anything about, and we're all doing the best that we can. So please love one another, and let's get through this together. You have your opinion, and the other person has theirs, and let's respectfully agree to disagree, and to boost each other and continue to boost our little businesses around here. Hey, if you don't want to go out there, order online and help those businesses out like that as well.
Thank you, Bobby.
One last, Mayor, because you and I are data people, just point out one very minor thing in what was presented, and that is that 4 people in Colleyville, 4 of the 17 that had the disease or were positive, have already recovered. So the number of people that we actually have currently active is actually 13, not 17.
And actually, I did comment the numbers. We have actually had 5 at this point, George. We had 1.
Oh, 5,
so we're
okay.
down to 12.
So it's 12 then. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, will you be able to
Yes.
share an update once you have a conversation with the Deputy Attorney General
Sure, absolutely.
and/or the mayor?
Sure.
Okay.
Be happy to.
And/or the governor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, be happy to. Okay.
Richard,
Yes.
two other small points. I wanted to, number one, shout out to our city staff, our fire department, our police department for the excellent work they've been doing and staying proactive on this. And also to our park staff who have been taking care of our parks. They've been disinfecting the playground equipment twice a day.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of great feedback about that, that people appreciate their ability to still use the equipment, use it safely.
Yeah.
And just as another data guy in the group here, we have not seen until just currently the last couple of days, any COVID-19 patients under the age of 15.
Yeah.
So what we're doing seems to be working. It seems to be working well for our citizens. But again, as everybody has said, if you don't feel comfortable going to the parks or the playgrounds and using the equipment, don't do it.
Yep. 2 points that you made me think of. Yeah, or maybe 3. We have the best staff in the whole state of Texas, probably the whole United States, and I'm dead serious about that. We really do. Every one of our staff is first responders. This city has not shut down. In fact, this city, if anything, have ramped up. We've done no furloughs. We don't intend to do any furloughs. Everybody has been at the job every single day. What this city has done, at the wise decision of our management leadership who are sitting here with me, Mark and Adrian and Jerry, city manager, have redeployed resources to do different things that need to be done. And I'm very proud of this. For instance, we have employees calling every one of our senior citizens. They've made 3,000 calls. So when I said we are paying particular attention to those that are in that higher risk group, that's an example. They're getting called, and they're getting called by the city, and simply to say, how are you? Is there anything you need at all? If you need something, we're going to be on it. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You've already pointed out that Parks and Recreation do an outstanding job of keeping our playground equipment sanitized so people can use it. That's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
They're out there in full bore get up because they're spraying bleach around. And so, and our fire department and our police department, our public works department, doing fantastic. Our library department is the library is closed. Our city buildings, you can't go in, although we're getting ready to make a change where we can, the same thing with business. If you need to come to a city building, you can make an appointment and come. If we say that's good for the business, we can do it ourselves. The next step beyond that, well, to open them up again. But that's what we're doing. So we are doing what we're preaching. There was another thought I had, and it just escaped my mind.
Do you want to mention the library delivery?
Yeah, the library, that's what it's going to do. The library's great. So library, you can't go to the library right now, but you can call up the library or go online and reserve a book or say, I want to check out these books, and they will deliver that to your house.
Where's your little sack, Mayor?
Huh?
Yeah, where's your
Oh,
bag? Pull your little bag.
In fact, try this out. And go get my bag. Yeah, I went online the other night because my wife is, she's a voracious reader, and we got stacks of books in the house that she got from friends, but she's out of books, and I'm still got one. But so I said, okay, let's go online and check out a book. So went online and we picked out 2, and I wasn't, it didn't say we'll deliver it. It just said reserve it. So I wasn't sure. I said, okay, I'm just going to see what happens. Well, I come into the office today, and there's a sack with Mayor Newton's name on it, and those were my books that I had reserved yesterday. And so Kathy went to get my sack because I forgot to bring it in here. Yeah, that's it. So my 2 books are in here. It was a great service. People love it. I mean, that's...
Hold it up, Mayor, so everybody can see it. Hold
Oh.
up what kind of sack they're getting there.
Can you see that?
Yeah, with your little name on it.
And on the backside of that, we're also making sure that the library staff is safe when books are returned.
Yeah.
So we're taking protective measures around that. So we're handling it on both sides.
Right, and I think the way that's being done, and correct me anybody if I'm wrong, but I think you can drop the book off at the drop-off when they're just, no?
No.
Tell me how we're doing it.
Right now, the drop box is closed. We're asking
Okay.
people to keep them.
Okay.
We are, however, going to be opening up the drop box and providing a protocol where we
Yeah.
only empty it twice a week.
Yeah, so that's what I was
Books
getting.
that-
So we're not doing that yet, but we're getting ready to. So they'll be dropped off. Those were been touched by other people. They're just going to let them sit there for the appropriate amount of time before they touch them again.
And I'd like to say something on those same lines. I would like to give kudos to our mayor because I say this all the time. We have the best mayor in the United States. There's no question about it. And one thing about our mayor is because we all know how much emotion is out there based on whatever you believe in. But he's taught me since I've been in day one to let's look at the facts, get the numbers, which he proved this evening and gave all the numbers. So everything that is based on, that he comes up with is based on the facts. And for that, Mayor, we appreciate it. And we love being associated and getting the word out. I tell him all the time, you're the best mayor in the United States, along with the best city managers. We are truly blessed here in Colleyville.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else need to say, be said about this topic before we move on? Okay. Thank you very much. Then we will move on. So we do have one more thing I want to do at announcements before we move on, and that's a proclamation for Arbor Day. So we're very proud of being a Tree City, USA. We've been that for many years. And normally we'd have a group of staff here to talk about this and give out T-shirts and hats, but in view of this, we're not going to do it. So I'm just going to read the proclamation because I do want to let people know we're proud of it and we're happy about it. And by the way, thank you for coming. We appreciate Channel 11 being here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a proclamation on behalf of Arbor Day. Let me read it. Whereas the City of Colleyville is committed to the citizens of Colleyville working together to improve the community and the environment by planting trees and teaching others about environmental stewardship. Whereas the City of Colleyville is proud of its natural resources and neighborhoods and seeks to protect and improve our community through the action of citizens, schools, governments, and businesses working together. And whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Martin proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. This holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and Arbor Day is observed throughout the world and has become a day dedicated to the beauty, usefulness, and preservation of trees. And whereas the City of Colleyville is celebrating their 22nd year of being designated a Tree City, USA community. Whereas the City of Colleyville is now therefore, I, Richard Newton, Mayor of the City of Colleyville, Texas, on behalf of the Colleyville City Council, do hereby proclaim April the 24th, 2020 as official Arbor Day in Colleyville, and call upon our citizens to promote responsible environmental stewardship and help us renew our commitment to building a better world today and for future generations. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and seal of the City of Colleyville, Texas, affixed this 21st day of April, 2020. So I thank all of our staff that works with our trees. We do have an arborist on staff.
Mayor, do you know if trees are going to be available this year? Because everybody always looks forward to getting their little tree.
Oh, I'm going to have to ask.
Do you know, Adrian?
The Arbor Day celebration had originally been planned in conjunction with our Junior Anglers event out at the Nature Center, but that was scheduled to occur during the month of April, so that particular event was canceled, and we will look for another opportunity to pair an Arbor Day celebration with one of our upcoming events, either this summer or this fall.
Great. Good deal. Good question. Okay, so with that, we're going to move to agenda item number 4, which is the consent, reading, and public hearing of Resolution R-20-4491, a resolution approving city council action under consent items at the regular city council meeting of April 21st, 2020. Whereas city council has taken action on certain items on the agenda under consent items. Now therefore be it resolved by the city council of the city of Colleyville, Texas, section 1, that the agenda decisions approved by city council action under consent items as follows are hereby adopted. A, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of April 7, 2020. B, approval to order a 2020 Spartan pumper with equipment from Metro Fire Apparatus Specialist, Inc., utilizing pricing through the Houston Galveston Area Council of Governments in an amount not to exceed $557,708, and approval to retire and trade in the 2010 Peace Aerial Fire Apparatus and enter into a lease purchase agreement with Leasing 2, Inc. for the lease purchase of the 2020 Spartan pumper, and authorizing the city manager to execute the vehicle purchase order and lease purchase agreement with Leasing 2, Inc. C, approval of a construction services agreement with C.F. McDonald Electric, Inc. for the L.D. Lockett Pump Station Emergency Generator Project in an amount not to exceed $404,690, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. D, approval of an amendment to the professional services agreement with Freeze and Nichols, Inc., amending the design parameters for the Roberts Road project to include replacing the existing water line and upsizing the existing wastewater line in an amount not to exceed $124,335, and authorizing the city manager to execute the amendment. E, approval of a construction services agreement with Grod Construction LLC for the John McCain Road at Westcote Drive Roundabout project in an amount not to exceed $1,142,907, and authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement, and it is so resolved. So, who's talking first? The fire chief. Hi.
Chief,
Is that mic working?
hello, is it working?
Yep.
Hello.
Now it is.
That's better, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Council, Mark Cantrell, Fire Chief. I, here tonight to seek approval for the purchase of a 2020 Spartan pumper. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the design, and the purchase, but I've got to thank the committee members first. When you put one of these together, it takes months and months and months to do this, and so there's just pages of detail. So that is Engineer Dustin Wynn, Field Supervising Officer Brent Wilson, Captain Lance Lindley, and Battalion Chief Nick Cushing was the chair of that committee.
Right.
And so they started several months ago working on this, and I gave them a really simple set of things I wanted them to look at. I wanted them to look at response efficiency, maneuverability. Safety was a big thing for me. We're very fortunate in the city of Colleyville that we've really kept a rural feel, and we have some big lots, and that creates setback issues with some of the homes. And so we want to be able to respond to those things and roundabouts. And so they really looked at our community and thought, what do we need? And so that was what I really gave them with. That was their jumping off point. I sent out a video a few months ago of San Francisco's Engine 13. I don't know if y'all remember or not, but it's really a new concept. And so that was their jumping off point. So they spent a fair amount of time looking at turn radius and overall length and wheelbase, and obviously the ability to pump the needed water and safety. Those were the really things that they keyed in on. So they sent a really broad set of specs to multiple vendors, and they settled on 4 that they dealt with. And once it all kind of shook out and they had a really good design, we felt like Spartan was the best for us. It was the safest. It gave us what we wanted and what we needed. And so their design is 3.5 feet shorter. The wheelbase is 33 inches shorter. It's 177 inches. To give you a little bit of perspective, an F-250 crew cab short bed's about 160 inches, and our ambulance is 196 inches. So a really short wheelbase, and what we were trying to create was the ability to be maneuverable. It has a curb-to-curb turn radius of just over 22.5 feet. So, so that you have crews of guys are not having to get out and back up so much and do all of those things. And we don't know exactly what the turn radius is on the one we have now, because no one really ever put that into effect. So we know it's substantially more than that. And the second part of this was safety. We wanted to create the safest thing we could. And so we've got a 360-degree camera view. That was the one thing I told them it had to have, has to have this. And so they'll be able to see all sides of their apparatus. So there's no blind spots. And, you know, if a bicyclist were to pull up beside them, they'll be able to see that. The turn radius, this just to give you one little thing that they looked at. Spartan has a centrally located gearbox, so your turn radius to the right and left are the same, where most vendors are not. So, I mean, they went into a tremendous amount of detail. And, you know, non-slip walking surfaces, additional lighting to improve visibility, full cab impact protection, rollover protection, full curtain airbags, and just tons of other safety features that we were able to put into it. So I'm extremely proud of what they did, and I think that they, you know, we talked about gaining 24 seconds in response time. Well, you don't get those chunks very often. So what you really have to look for is just a second here and a second there. And we think apparatus design is a big part of that. And so I'm very proud of what they did. And I know you covered a little bit, but I want to run through it.
And it is a scheduled replacement as a part of our normal replacement program. We're currently running engines for 12 years frontline and 6 years in reserve. It's about a 300-day build time, so that's why we're coming to you now. Spartan ERV purchased through Metro Fire. We're going to use HJC purchasing, cooperative purchasing, as you said. Net cost is $557,708, and we're looking to do a 5-year agreement using our current leasing agent, Leasing 2. So those are the facts as I know. Any questions?
It's great information about the safety and the size. I did not know that. Yeah. Great job.
Thank you.
You did a great job. Any other questions?
No, I think you've been very, very
Yeah.
thorough on this, so.
George, do you say something?
Yes, sir. My question is, we've implemented a new plan or a new process to take out to not take basically not take the big, and I'll use the wrong term, but not take the big trucks, big, whatever they call it, engines, I guess, not to take those out on most ambulance calls. And in Colleyville, I think it's what, 70 or 80% of our calls are ambulance calls and not fire calls. So my question is, do we expect a lengthening term for these engines to last because of that?
And so that's a great question. This particular engine, there is some reduction to call. It does still have a response district to EMS because of the location. So it's responding, it will be responding to the far north part of the city. We have lengthened that out. It was 10-year replacement, and we went to a 12-year replacement. And so we have had some lengthening of that, but we'd certainly take a look at it. You know, we always have that theory, you know, if we can make it last and make it more efficient, then we're certainly willing to look at that.
Chief, also you might want to talk about the savings regarding the maintenance on the current engine.
So yeah, so what we're looking at, we had previously looked at having two reserve apparatus, and so we chose to, and it's a little unusual for a city our size. So I made the decision to go back to what we had previously done several years ago, and that is to have one. And so we think we're best served for that to be an engine, and the replacement or the trade of the truck is because we've spent an exorbitant amount of money in repair on that thing. And so it's real hard for a truck like that, a big truck, to set in reserve. So we've gone to a model where, when I say truck, ladder truck. So we've gone to a model where we're going to replace a truck when we're going to get rid of a truck when we replace it. So engines for engines, trucks for trucks, and so that we're not mixing that. We've spent, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but 3 or 4 times more on a truck maintenance setting in reserve than we did on a frontline engine. And so that's why we made that decision. It's sort of like a car, you know, if a car sets too long, you know, it's the worst thing in the world for a car to set. So that's even worse for a truck because you've got the ladder and all the money that goes into testing that ladder, and if you don't exercise it properly and all of those sorts of things. And so we think having a truck in reserve for us in a city our size is a little bit difficult to justify. And so we've made a commitment for our reserve apparatus to be an engine, which is what we had kind of always done in the past as well. So.
Great.
Could you explain to us what an engine and what a truck are?
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry about
That's a
that.
great question. I'll talk fire trucks all day. So an engine is a pumping apparatus. Obviously, it has some other uses, but a truck has a ladder, typically, you know, more in that 95 to 100 plus feet range when you say truck. So it has a ladder on it. Some people call them ladders, some people call them trucks. We use the term truck locally. So it is something with a ladder on it. An engine is simply the smaller ones with the pumps.
Any other questions on that topic?
But this doesn't have the huge extension ladder though, what's that called? That's called something else?
No, sir, it does not. It doesn't have a ladder on it.
Right.
I mean, it has ground ladders, but it doesn't have
Right.
like a, no, sir.
And Chief, that vehicle would be replaced, you're talking, what, 2023, 2024?
2024, 2025, I believe, is Adrian's what we had looked at.
You're talking about, that's when the ladder truck will be replaced?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have something, Mayor.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. I would just like to say that my father-in-law was a fireman for 33 years, and we kind of looked over this together to get his expert opinion. And first thing he said was, "Oh my gosh, fire trucks have gone up quite a bit." But he looked this truck over, and he said it's one of the great trucks. And he said, as a matter of fact, with our smaller streets in Colleyville, this truck is going to be ideal to carry the capacity that it does and the things that it does is pretty good. He was kind of shocked that we went 12 years with these trucks. But just as what the chief said, which was that you got to use these trucks or the hydraulic hoses start getting, wore and old and brittle and other things, tires start going flatter on those, flat spot. And the trucks, if they sit for a long, long period of time, in Irving, they tried that at one time. But Chief, I think you did a great job. According to the expert that lives down the street from us, he says that you've done a great job doing this, and so I'll leave it up to you guys. I think you did a great job getting this truck ready.
Tell him thank you, and next time I'll let him do this.
He probably will do it. Don't say that.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Ray?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Ray Silvarez, Director of Public Works. I will be speaking on the next three items. Item 4C, staff is seeking approval of a construction service agreement with CF McDonald Electric for the installation of an emergency generator at the LD Lockett Pump Station. This generator has been overdue for quite some time. Our pump station over there has no power, emergency power, in the event of an outage, so this is a critical component that should be put into our water system. And so we went out for bids. The city received 5 sealed bids. 5 sealed bids, which were open and publicly read out loud on April 7th. And staff, along with the consultants, checked the reputation of McDonald Electric, and we found them to be reputable, and we recommend approval. Any
Great.
questions?
Any questions?
Just, Mayor, one compliment that needs to be made is that the staff did pursue multiple grant opportunities to try to get funding for this generator, and surprisingly, instead got the grant money for the generator at City Hall when they thought this would have been a more likely candidate. And so it was only after that effort of trying and not being successful did they then proceed to go ahead and fund it with a capital-funded endeavor.
Very good, sir.
Yeah, just a question on how the bid compares to the original estimate or what we have in our plan, in our budget?
Yes, let me pull that up right here real quick. I believe we set aside $575,000 for this project, and the low bid came in at $404,690, so we came well under on this one. So,
That's wonderful, Ray. Thank you. Great job.
thank you. All right, on to the next item.
Yes.
4D. This item is for consideration and approval of an amendment to increase the existing professional service agreement with Freeze and Nichols for the purposes of addressing supplemental design for Roberts Road. This amendment includes replacing the existing 8-inch water line and upsizing the existing 6-inch wastewater line to an 8-inch wastewater line. The age of the existing water line is unknown. However, staff believe it was installed about 25-plus years ago, and the condition of the pipe that we have located shows signs of deterioration in certain locations, and it's not consistent with the newer materials that we're seeing out there with the blue PVC pipe. Originally, the utilities were going to be replaced at a later time since the road was going to be rebuilt with an asphalt pavement. Given that the asphalt pavement life is only 7 years, that recommendation was made to wait. However, last year, during one of our council work sessions, we came up with the option of going to concrete because it was right within the range. And so that kind of changed the outlook of what we need to do and what we need to get replaced right now. So in order to maximize and extend the 30-year concrete pavement, we recommend this amendment, approval of this amendment.
Any
Any
questions?
questions?
Go ahead.
Ray, isn't this also to support, I believe we were going to do a water interchange station between ourselves and the city next door?
Yes, so that one, yes, that is, it's, part of it is already in the original construction design to do that, and this is just, we're gonna make sure that the pipe that we're connecting to is robust and ready to go.
Great.
Ray, is that a clay tile pipe that's in the ground right now?
It's a PVC pipe still, it's a white PVC pipe, so it's just one of the old obsolete pipes that we're no longer using, so it's not the
Right, right. So
C900
you're
pipe.
Okay, so you're rolling up the blue, okay.
Yes,
I was
sir.
just curious if it was clay tile still.
No, it's just an unknown pipe, and rather than risk it putting the concrete pavement, we'd rather go with the C900 PVC pipe.
But this is just
Absolutely,
for the
agreed.
design. Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby, I thought you were finished.
No, 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 I was just saying I agree. Go ahead, Tam.
This is just for the design, though, correct?
Correct, this is just for design, to get the plan and profiles in line for these.
How long does it take to design something like this?
It's still, we're at 60% with the road design and the
Right.
meter vault, and so we're gonna ramp this one up pretty well. It will not
No,
slow
but I'm
up.
talking specifically, this 124,000 is for the water line, correct?
Correct.
Does it take hours, days? I'm just curious. I mean, I'm going to go back and get my degree for this. It just blew my mind, $124,000 to design a water line down Roberts Road?
Yeah, and just to,
I say that every time, but I really need to do it.
yeah, just offer some comments. It's water, bless you.
Bless you.
Water and wastewater, so there's two aspects to it.
Okay, so two lines.
But if you look at it, it's about 5% of the contract cost for the overall road project, and so engineering's expensive.
Obviously.
And so you're, by the time you get done with the road, the sewer and water, and then, of course, the amendment, you're at about 15% for all of those things. And
I know.
that is unfortunately a function, you'd love to see that each of those components be 7 to 8%, but combined at 15, it's not a surprising number.
It just always blows my mind on those. I mean, what it takes to design that. I just,
Yes, no doubt about
Yeah.
it.
There's good money in water pipes.
Yes.
How long is the road? It's not more than a half mile, is it?
No, it's right around half mile, just
Yeah.
a little bit short of that, yes. Going up
Yeah.
into the Grapevine city limits.
So it's going to cost $3 million to put that in, and that doesn't include the right-of-way for the right turn lane, right?
That's correct. The right-of-way, we'll be bringing that up here shortly, but we managed to minimize how much right-of-way we're gonna be needing from this project to just the two corners at that intersection of Glade and Roberts Road.
Oh, okay. All right, that's good, but it just seems like an awful lot of money for a very short street that I think is relatively lightly used, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the OPCC, as the city manager was pointing to, proves it to be right where we need it to be. So it's up there with the design costs.
Ray, does the engineer's estimate include the sewer and water, or is that just the road?
It includes the stormwater as well. Yep.
The
It's
sewer-
all
The
inclusive.
sanitary and water, not just stormwater. Does it include the utility as well?
Yes, it includes the water and wastewater as well, too.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'd raise
Okay,
that estimate.
thank you very much.
sure. Okay. On to 4E. So staff is seeking approval of a construction agreement with Garage Construction for John McCain Road at West Coast Drive, which we call the mini roundabout project. Similar to the McDonald roundabout, this is just a smaller variation of it. We're gonna have storm drains installation, concrete paving, and some, this project will remain partially closed. We will still allow traffic to go in and out as opposed to the one at McDonald where it would be a full closure. This project, during the evaluation of the bids, concerns emerged regarding the qualifications of the low bidder. Show you here. We've used the low bidder on another project, Frontier, and we did not have a good going with him. It wasn't a smooth ride with him, and based on his backgrounds and references, they were also recommending not to go with them, so we decided to go with the next bidder, which is Rod Construction.
Is 308 Construction LLC the same as Frontier? Or is?
No, that's the Frontier Court project that we did
I
about a year ago.
misunderstood you. Thank
Yes.
you. Okay.
So that, we used him on that one,
Okay.
and then we came to find out he's just a contractor who just gets a lot of subs, so meaning he doesn't have control over what gets done. And so being this one is gonna be a fairly prominent project, we're gonna make sure that the general contractor has control over all those aspects of the project. So staff recommends approval.
Totally agree with that concept, Bray.
Yeah. Ray, again, the other roundabout at McDonald School and Westcote, it was what, 1.4 million? Or is it more than that?
I believe it was around 1.4 million, yes, sir.
Why is this one so close? I think it seems to me like the other one has turn lanes and other things that are more complex.
Absolutely. What you got to take into consideration, this one is the traffic control plan that we have. That one was a full closure, which helped out bring those prices down. On this one, we're keeping it partially open. Also, in addition to this one, we're preparing or teeing it up for the next project, which is the John McCain walk or bike and hike trail that will connect McPherson Park back to the Cotton Belt Trail. And so in this project, we're extending the culvert that's right there east of the intersection of McCain and Westcote. So it's a part of this project as well.
Oh, thank you.
Any other question for Ray?
Good clarification.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Ray.
Ray?
So that's all the presentation. I'm going to open a public hearing at this point. Public hearing is open. I don't think I have any cards.
No, sir.
Have no cards. So I see no one wanting to speak tonight, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. The motion is in order.
I make a motion to approve Resolution R-20-4491.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Nakamura, a second by Councilmember Kelly. So we're going to vote manually tonight. Councilmember Nakamura,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lindemoot,
Aye.
Councilmember Wheat,
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Councilmember Dodson,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
Councilmember Rigney.
Aye.
The motion is approved, therefore the resolution is approved. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 5. This is our monthly financial report by Kyle Lester.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good evening, and tonight I do have the monthly financial report for March of 2020. Heading into March, we're halfway through our fiscal year right now. Currently, our general fund surplus is significantly stronger than we would have expected at this time. We're sitting at about $7.45 million in general fund surplus. Last year, that was about $7.6 million. Of course, this is going to come down significantly over the rest of the fiscal year. But it is good news that we're sitting in a very financially stable condition going into some of those uncertain months that we've talked about. As of March, we have collected 97% of our property tax levy. There's still less than $800,000 outstanding that we'll be steadily collecting through the rest of the fiscal year. In total, we anticipate receiving almost $15.1 million in general fund property tax this year. And I did mention in a Friday report a little bit that there was potentially a chance for a disaster declaration property tax exemption for certain businesses that were economically damaged. The Attorney General has come back with a ruling on that and has said that that exemption does not apply to the statute. So we're all concerned about our businesses. The best thing we can do is take that tax rate as low as we possibly can. And that's what we've done the past 2 years. That's what we'll continue to aim to do every year.
Very good.
Sales taxes. We've seen a large increase in sales tax pretty much every month this year. We saw our first decline, actually, in our February numbers, which were collected in March. The good news is that decline is solely attributed to a positive audit collection we received in February of last year. So basically, we saw one or more retailers that were remitting their taxes to the wrong city. So the comptroller corrected for that, gave us the check for the difference in February of last year, which puts last February over this year by about 1%. If we account for that and just look at retail sales within those months, we were actually slightly ahead of last year. So still a little bit of good news on that down month. From a city comparison and looking at the statewide, everything looks about like it's looked for the most of the fiscal year, with some pretty healthy increases. Of course, we're all going to waiting to see what the COVID-19 pandemic, what effect that has on our sales taxes. We will all certainly take a hit, but as I mentioned, we're going into this in a very, very strong financial condition. I have no doubt that we should be able to keep on going without problem. And our utility fund does continue to do much better than last year from a fiscal standpoint. Our surplus there is currently around $800,000. Consumption this year is still up significantly, although we'll certainly see this coming down due to rain that we've had. But as of March, you can see that consumption is above last year, as well as the average that we've seen over the past 5 years. And the last slide I have for you is our drainage utility fund. It's always the easiest one to look at because it's always the most predictable. And we're looking very similar to how we looked last year. Last year's surplus was $131,000 as of March. This year we're looking at $148,000 and holding steady. Mayor and Council, that concludes my update.
Going back to the water
Yes, sir.
slide, the utility fund, what do you attribute that larger surplus to right now?
Well, at this point in time, we do have a portion of our, there's the base rate and of course that rate that we pass through.
Project rate,
There is a small portion of the pass-through rate that has that capital project portion on, and I'd say that's a portion of it, and just strong fiscal management at this point in time.
Okay, so it's either, but we account for that project component.
We do. We were going to make that transfer. We haven't done it
And
yet.
so, I mean, the reason I asked that question, that implies that, wow, we're getting even more efficient at running our utility system. I mean,
Yes, sir.
That's amazing.
And as you mentioned, we designed this fund to be a break-even fund at the end of
Yes.
the year. That's what we plan
Right.
on doing.
And so what we promise the citizens, find that what you pay for water is a pass-through. We run the system, we charge you for what it costs us to run it, and if we can get better at it, that goes down.
That's
And so
correct.
That implies that
Yeah.
you're doing a fantastic job in the city.
Yeah, I have I made this a statement, this is George, I made this statement, I think last month. It surprises me dramatically that our water consumption has actually increased because it has been raining since last October, almost every week. And so it just, I know I see people watering their lawn right after a rain around here.
Well, I think,
My only suggestion to them is they pay attention, to the rains and don't water when they don't need to.
well, I don't think they know how to turn off their sprinklers, quite frankly. Some of them are so intricate that they don't know how to turn them off.
The other thing is that we've been in a very heavy rain timeline, and we've actually had some of our heaviest years of overall rain data for the last 2 years. And so I think even though we have had some rain this year, you may be beginning to see that level off and start to drop. And so I think that we will continue to see consumption of water going up the next couple of years. And this may be the beginning of that trend change. Certainly the spring already has been while it's been wet, it's been much different than last year as far as the overall volume. Second thing is, Kyle, do you include in the revenues here the true-up at this point, or when does that?
No, sir, that's not going to come until, I believe, May.
And do we have an indication of what that would be?
Not currently, off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay, so that's part of that surplus, true-up, yeah.
Yeah, well, and also the underspending by the department is also part of this surplus endeavor, is that, they will spend under their budget, and hopefully the revenues are where we expect.
Yeah, actually, what I said is incorrect. It's got to be the department, because true-up is built into our rate. We don't see that till later.
Yes, and that's why I asked if it had
Right.
posted yet or not.
Right.
Because
No,
that
that
true-up
should-
could be substantial.
That should come in May.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 6. A. This is first reading and public hearing of ordinance O-20-2114, approval of the adoption of the City of Colleyville Water Conservation and Drought Contingency Plan for 2020. Ray, you're on.
Yes, all right. Good evening again. So Chapter 288 of the Texas Administration Code requires municipal water suppliers to develop water conservation and contingency drought plans, which establishes minimum requirements for such plans and to be updated every 5 years. The Texas Administrative Code also contains provisions that allow TCEQ to require specific actions to be taken if they determine such actions are necessary to achieve the goals of water conservation plans. Now, the objective of this plan is to increase efficiency of water use and reduce water demands without adversely affecting the population and economic growth of the city. The fundamental strategy for this plan is to be able to respond appropriately to water supply and water emergencies. And as I stated, this is required to be done every 5 years. The city's wholesale supplier of treated water is Trinity River Authority. TRA purchases raw water from Tarrant Regional Water District and follows their adopted water conservation and drought contingency plan. Both Tarrant Regional and TRA plans were adopted in 2019. The city's water system has over 207 miles of distribution lines and over 10,000 service collections. We have 3 elevated storage tanks and one ground storage tank located at the pump station. So on a given time, we have the capacity to hold 8.5 million gallons of water on a day. Over the previous 5 years, the city has averaged over 2.3 billion gallons of water use annually. So we do use a lot of water here. One thing to note, while the city is mandated to have a plan in place, the city does not have to activate it until the city declares the need for it. The city manager or his designee shall have the authority to initiate or terminate this plan. The city manager, along with the concurrence of the city council, will order the implementation of a drought response state or water emergency when requested to do so by TRA or when the conditions warrant the implementation plan. As a city, we're always in a water awareness stage, meaning we're trying to conserve our water, making sure that we're using it efficiently. In updating the plan to ensure compliance with current TCQ rules and consistency with TRA, staff found no policy changes needed to be made at this time. The only changes required for the proposed 2020 plan was to update the statistical information for the city. Staff is confident the plan meets and exceeds all of TCQ requirements and that no additional measures beyond those included in the plan will be necessary. And this is only the first reading, so if you have any questions, I hope to have them all answered here, but if not, I can bring it back in the second reading.
Yeah, I have one comment on page 8. This is a wastewater non-essential uses. It says waterways. The following shall be unlawful at any time of the year for any person, firm, corporation. The middle bullet, operating an automated in-ground irrigation system or hose and sprinkler on any day of the week between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. I disagree with that. I think that should be struck.
Okay.
Because that's any time of the year, unless I'm misreading something.
I will confirm that the way you're reading is correct, and I'll see if we can get that removed there.
Okay.
Okay.
The plot, just a matter of curiosity, on page 19, there's a plot that's a plot of population. And there's, from 2010 to 2015, there's a line that goes up pretty steep, and then 20 after that, it drops. Kind of interesting, just for us. Anyway. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ray?
Hey, Ray, backing back up to page 8, the second bullet up from the bottom, I do know that, at least in my neighborhood, the house across the street has a French drain that continuously runs, so I'm assuming that this doesn't account for French drains and that are draining the property.
Right, it won't account for groundwater, and we will verify to make sure whether it's groundwater or your potable water, because it does have a little bit of chlorine residual to maintain the disinfectant levels, and so we are able to identify what it is. And so if it is groundwater, it is just a natural condition.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes, sir.
And be perfectly honest, because of everything that's going on and how busy I've been, I haven't read this whole thing, but I will before next meeting. And one question is, so a number of people have wells, and so I assume these statements have to do with city water use.
Absolutely, it's dealing with the supply that we get from TRA.
Yep, okay, very good. Any other questions for Ray?
Nope.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. I do not believe I have any cards. I see no one in the audience that wants to speak on this. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. This is first reading of an ordinance, so we'll have it on the agenda next time to further vote. Thank you. So the next, Yes.
They're tabled, but Ms. Hadley, what else do
okay.
you want to table?
Yeah, so now we're going to agenda items 7A, B, and C, and those are all tabled. And so, Mrs. Hadley, you had wanted to, so we're not going to take those off the table. So she's shaking her head no, she doesn't need to speak. That will bring us to agenda item 8. So 8A is public reading and public hearing of Resolution R-20-4492, denial of Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC's hang on, resolution, I gotta read it. Let me get there. Now, Resolution R-20-4492, a resolution of the City of Colleyville, Texas, finding Encore Electric Delivery Company LLC application for approval to amend its distribution cost recovery factor to increase distribution rates within the city should be denied. Authorizing participation with Encore City's steering committee, authorizing the hiring of legal counsel and consulting services, and finding the city's reasonable rate case expenses shall be reimbursed by the company. Whereas the City of Colleyville, Texas is an electric utility customer of Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC, or Encore Company, and a regulatory authority with an interest in the rates and charges of Encore. And whereas the Encore City Steering Committee is a coalition of similarly situated cities served by Encore that have joined together to efficiently and cost-effectively review and respond to electric issues affecting rates charged in Encore's service area and matters before the Public Utility Commission and the courts. And whereas on or about April 3rd, 2020, Encore filed with the city an application for approval to amend its distribution cost recovery factor, PUC docket number 50734, seeking to increase electric distribution rates by approximately $75.9 million annually. And whereas the City of Colleyville will cooperate with OCSC, which is the Encore City Steering Committee, in coordinating their review of Encore's DCRF filing with designated attorneys and consultants, prepare a common response, negotiate with the company, and direct any necessary litigation to resolve issues in the company's filing. And whereas all electric utility customers residing in the city will be impacted by this rate-making proceeding if it is granted, and whereas working with the OCSC to review the rates charged by Encore allows members to accomplish more collectively than each city could do acting alone, and whereas cities' members and attorneys recommend members deny this DCRF, now therefore be it resolved by the City of Colleyville of the City Council of the City of Colleyville, Texas, Section 1, that the city is authorized to participate with OCSC and PUC docket number 50734. Section 2, that subject to the right to terminate employment at any time, the City of Colleyville hereby authorizes the hiring of the law firm of Lloyd Gosling, Rochelle and Townsend PC and consultants to negotiate with the company, make recommendation to the city regarding reasonable rates, and to direct any necessary administrative proceedings or court litigation associated with an appeal of Encore's DCRF application. Section 3, that the rates proposed by Encore to be recovered through its DCRF charge to customers located within the city limits are hereby found to be unreasonable and shall be denied. Section 4, that the company shall continue to charge its existing rates to customers within the city. Section 5, that the city's reasonable rate case expenses shall be reimbursed in full by Encore within 30 days of presentation of an invoice to Encore. Section 6, that it is hereby officially found and determined that the meeting at which this resolution is passed is open to the public as required by law, and the public notice of the time, place, and purpose of said meeting was given as required. Section 7, that a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Tab Urbanski, attorney for Encore at Hutton Andrews Kurth LLP, 1445 Ross Avenue, Suite 3700, Dallas, Texas, 75202, and to Thomas Brocato, general counsel to OCSC at Lloyd Gosling, Rochelle and Townsend PC, P.O. Box 1725, Austin, Texas, 78767, 1725, or tbrocado@lglawfirm.com, and it is so resolved.
So sorry. I tripped
Mouthful.
that away.
Wow.
I'm tired.
I promise I didn't write that when the attorneys wrote
I
that
know.
resolution.
I know.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Adrienne Lothry, Assistant City Manager. So I think you've covered all of the basics and the resolution details, but the brief synopsis, you maybe recall last year around this time, we had a similar filing from Encore. They requested to increase their distribution rates, and we found that the best process in terms of handling that is to work with our other cities through the Encore City Steering Committee. We work together through this coalition of committees, share legal counsel and consultants, work together to negotiate that, and together we're able to have more of an impact in negotiating that rate request down with Encore. So tonight before you is the recommendation to deny Encore's request to increase rates, which will then require them to continue charging their same rates for the city of Colleyville. Their rate increase request equals approximately an 88-cent increase to the average residential customer bill. So after, if the council denies this request from Encore tonight, then we'll get to work and report back what the negotiations are able to achieve.
Okay. Very good. Any questions? That's fairly self-explanatory after reading that. Thank you. Okay, so this is a resolution, so we'll act on it. I'll open a public hearing. Public hearing is open.
No cards.
Have no cards. No one in the audience to speak on the public hearing, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Motion is in order.
Mayor, I'll move to approve Resolution R-20-4492.
Okay.
I'll second.
Have a motion to approve by Councilmember Kelly, a second by Councilmember Wheat. So we'll take the vote manually. I'm going to starting with Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
You made a
Sally.
motion to approve. It should be a motion to deny. Is that, or is he wanting to approve?
Ask that one more time. I didn't quite get.
Chuck made a motion to approve the resolution, and this says a motion to, this says denial.
Yeah, so the motion is to approve the resolution, but the resolution said we are denying the request.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, so I didn't
Yeah,
go
no,
wrong.
good
Okay.
question. No, we always want to be sure the motions are clear. Yeah,
Sorry.
So we will, with that motion, this will deny it. An aye vote denies that rate request.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll vote. Mayor Pro Tem Lindamood.
Aye.
Councilmember Wheat.
Aye.
The mayor votes aye. Councilmember Dodson.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Rigney.
Aye.
And Councilmember Nakamura.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the resolution, which means the rate request is denied.
Okay.
Very good. Now moving to agenda item 9, which is tabled. We will leave that on the table for tonight, and therefore we'll move to item 10, citizen comments.
You have a card. Just have that.
We do have Kathy Hadley, citizen comments, yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Kathy Headley, 204 Timberland Drive North, represent myself. Am I not allowed to talk about 9A? It is tabled still, correct? We can't even talk about it?
Go ahead. Go ahead and talk about
I
it.
don't want to do it if I'm not supposed to.
Well, normally it's on the agenda and we leave it at table so we wouldn't
Okay,
speak
then I
about
won't
it.
talk about it.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Kathy, can you step closer to the microphone, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, okay, where to begin? I'm sorry, y'all. I do this to y'all every time. Okay, once again, on Highway 26, it's great driving down 26. It's so nice
Isn't it
now.
great?
Wow, it is great. But it's kind of sad. I can't wait till we get the trees in the medians and get some greenery, because it's like pavement city. You know, we need some greeneries. We need
Yeah.
some softening. Anyway, the trees, I know that, I can't remember the name of the tree that we talked about last time. What worries me, and that tree does have a very, kind of, we'll say, a bare trunk, so you can see right through it. But my concern is it does not have much of a canopy, so when the wind blows, it's not going to be able to stabilize itself. It may fall over pretty easy when the wind blows, and we may have trouble with it in the road when the winds kick up, my concern. And also, why don't we use a variety of trees? I think that having maybe some cedars would be nice, and I've talked about this before, about using it possibly to decorate for Christmas or whatever, and having the power boxes so we can do lights and stuff. But doing a variety of trees. And also, I'm not really crazy about the rocks and the gravel. If y'all would have driven down Glade by Roberts, kind of also by that little older church, we have the medians there with some greenery and the rocks. And Lisa's done a nice job and everything, and it looks really good. But in my opinion, it doesn't really represent Colleyville real well with the greenery. I mean, we're Tree City, USA, and we're doing lots of hardscape stuff. So I think it'd be nice to see the green, the live plants, not the hard rocks and the hard surfaces. The geese at the ponds there at the community center, I've talked to y'all before about doing ramps for the little geese to be able to get out. Colleyville Nature Center, they've put, I know that George and Bobby both commented on it. There's a cutest little, somebody did a video of the little duck, a mama duck, and all these little babies, quack, 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 coming up out of the pond, and it's really sweet. They can't do it in the ponds at the community center. I mean, once they're in there, they're in there. They can't get out, and that's really sad and kind of scary. You get an animal that falls in there or a small child. Baby ducks. The older ducks don't have any problem flying out, but the little ducks, they can't. They walk out until they learn to fly. So once again, I'd really like y'all to do something about taking down that big, deep wall that y'all have around those ponds there at the community center, and I think there's also one on Glade and at the end of Riverwalk. It'd be nice if y'all could take care of that, because I know that, and also do some landscaping around the pond there, be at the community center, because the geese go walking across Riverwalk, and if you remember last year, we had several geese get hit and killed because they're walking across and they're going to the area by Market Street where there's some greenery for them to have a nest in the medians and along the grocery store. We need to do our little wildlife a favor and just plant some plants for them to be able to live amongst the bushes and along the pond. I know it's not a crazy idea. I've not spoken with one of y'all before. Not really crazy about using that land that we use maybe once in a blue moon to get together and have a little function. Yeah, it is really great. But just fence it off so they have an area where they can be safe. I'm almost done, Miss. May I continue?
Yes, you may.
But the little ramp for the geese would be great. In the pre-council meeting, the gentleman shared with the different types of trees and stuff, and I don't know if that's who we're gonna be using to do the medians, but I didn't see any samples of the medians he's done before. So before y'all choose somebody, I would like to see samples of the medians, not samples of the plants. I want to see the actual finished product that they've done before. We have a quarry that I have used before right here off of, it's almost at 1709. I want to say, I'm trying to desperately remember, like when you're going to the Target, North Richland Hills, things like Precinct Line, you're going north and you just kind of go around the Target over there, and then you shoot up towards 1709. I'm not real sure what that road is called, if that's still Precinct
It's
Line.
Davis. It's off of Davis. Yeah.
Okay, and off to the right is a quarry, and I've gone there and I've gotten some huge slabs of rock from my yard. So it's somebody nice and local that we can use. maybe we don't have to pay millions of dollars to have somebody do the work, and we can, use our own crews. I did it, and anyway, for my yard. Let's see, we have a splash pad. I know we talked about in pre-council meeting a splash pad, possibly over there, off of Bransford. We have a splash pad, and it's over there on LD Lockett. So I don't see a city having 2 splash pads. I think it's kind of a waste of our money. Maybe, do something different with it, my opinion. And I don't see tearing down that house. Y'all make your own decisions, of course, but I mean, I know that she said something about asbestos. But when I first moved here, my husband and I moved here, there were functions at that house. So if the house is being able to be used, why do we have to tear it down? Why can't it be used? And there's a butterfly garden there that my mom years ago, when she was in Colleyville Garden Club, and I don't know if it's still there or not. There was a butterfly garden at that house, and it'd be interesting to know if it's still there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you all so much. Oh, can I say something? I appreciate you very much listening to our governor and our president. I strongly appreciate you giving the citizens the right to think for themselves and be held accountable for their own decisions. I appreciate being able to make that choice on my own. Thank you very much for Colleyville standing up and giving the residents the ability to think for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so that brings us to agenda item 11, which we do not need, so that brings us to adjournment. And we'll adjourn without objection. I hear no objection. We're adjourned. Thank you.
No objection. Good night, everybody.